Dr. Wolfgang Bloch, Corporate Vice President for Siemens, in charge of environmental affairs and technical safety. Good afternoon to you, and welcome to Singapore.
Good afternoon to you as well.
Right.
It's at any time a pleasure for me to stay here in Singapore.
Right. I heard you talk about the challenge of the climate crisis, global warming and all that at the panel earlier this morning. Now, as we speak today, the world is facing a credit crisis, a food crisis, geopolitical tensions, rising energy costs and so on. Why should anybody pay attention to the climate crisis now? It looks like it's right at the bottom of the priority list.
I think that all these crises are more or less linked to each other. The food crisis has something to do with the climate crisis, because if we feed in the food not for eating, but feed in the food, for example wheat or corn, into our cars, I don't know whether this is the appropriate way. On the other hand, if the climate change definitely will happen with all these consequences mentioned in the IPCC, the melting of glaciers will not only happen in Greenland or in the southern part of the world, but will also happen in the mountain area of Himalaya and even in the mountain area of the Alps. And all these continental glaciers are the source of our natural water, what we need. And if there is no water available for us, agriculture, and we will suffer from that.
Right. But you know that people are now more concerned with the immediate. They're frightened about the shortage of food, they're frightened about rising costs of everything. So will they have time to pay attention to global warming?
The statistics are saying that a little bit in a different picture. More and more people are becoming aware about the climate change, and more people tell to the analysts that they will accept changes in their personal lives to save the world, to save the climate, and to promote these effects.
I'm going to talk about the role of Siemens in some of the things that you're doing that will affect energy efficiency as well as climate issues. For example, on your website, your company offers solutions for the oil and gas industry. It's a big piece of business for your company. Now, at the moment, we are seeing record oil prices, and part of that is linked to fears of oil depletion. So tell me, what is Siemens' view on oil depletion? If you're spending so much of your resources and your focus on a fossil fuel?
First part of the answer is that efficiency is not only related to energy efficiency, but we also have to handle all our industrial processes, also in the oil and gas sector, more efficient. So if we can upgrade and if we can help our customers to handle their processes more efficient, then we could help them that our resources may last longer than expected. On the other hand, it was in the newspapers 2 days or 3 days ago that a new large oil field in front of West Africa was discovered. So there is still some resource in oil and gas available. But as you may know, oil and gas is something what we definitely by burning phase out of our resources. If you're talking about metals can be recycled several times and will be available within the processes for a long time. But the oil and gas issue we have to take serious, and we have to think about new technologies and efficient technologies to minimize the consumption of these not any longer available resources.
Right. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is energy efficiency, which is on your CV, one of the goals that your company is trying to pursue. There is a paradox out there. It's this scientist from the UK, a 19th century scientist, who talk about the paradox of efficiency. It's named after him now, Jevons paradox. the more efficient we get, the more energy we actually end up consuming. For example, if in the case of the airline industry, there's a couple of manufacturers who say that we are going to make green planes that will take more people, use less energy per passenger. The irony of it is that the bigger the planes, you end up flying more people across the world, and the total result is the airline industry will end up using more fuel. And that's the paradox. So how do we reconcile that? On the one hand, you're trying to make things more efficient, but on the other hand, because of that, it will lead to your consumers, your customers, and even yourselves using up more energy. How do you deal with that?
I have an adverse example for you available, and you just brought me to that idea when you explained me the example of airplanes. We have designed trains, and we offered these trains, as, for example, to the UK, also for Spain and for Russia, where we could demonstrate that per passenger and per 100 kilometer, the energy consumption is only 1/3 compared with an old one train. So I do not know whether this paradoxon really still is existing if we upgrade and if we modify installed base. For example, lightning. If you take the old-fashioned lightning that consumes much more energy than lightning solutions from Osram, with those energy-saving lightnings, you can save 30, 40, 50% of energy by upgrading, by substituting the old-fashioned technologies. And on the other side, if you go into the details for the economy, there is some industrial areas of the world, some regions, some states already have increased their GDP by less consuming of energy. There are areas in the world which still consume more energy for increasing their GDP. But in Europe, it's not any longer true that an increase of economy also would cause an increase of energy consumption. So you have to think about really to integrate energy efficient solutions as much as possible.
I think that's where we have an issue, because what happens is everybody is going after the GDP, going after economic growth. And of course we want to be more efficient to stretch the resources. But the ultimate goal is to increase consumption, to increase production. And that's where the paradox lies. The more we save on something, ironically, we end up using more of the same resource.
I think that depends on the wealthy of the society. If you already have a society which is, I will not say really satisfied, but is in itself stable, like in Europe, we can substitute old technologies by more energy efficient technologies. For example, refrigerators, for example, dishwashers and washing machines. If you compare those household equipments with equipment which already is 10 years old, a washing machine nowadays consumes about 30 to 40% less water compared with the older one, and also about 30% less energy. So again, if you are in a society which already has achieved a high level and is stable, substitution by itself will cause a decrease of energy consumption. But if you take India or if you take China, we cannot and we will not avoid that those countries, those societies also would like to achieve a high living standard. And those areas, they have to take these issues of energy efficiency quite more serious to avoid that with growing demand of the society, the energy also, the consumption of energy also is increasing. But I'm very confident that from a governmental point of view, from a society point of view, but also from an industrial point of view, we can offer solutions to mitigate these or to decrease these energy consumption.